Patriciang Payatot, Cristina Hidalgo. I always liked school. This must make me what is now called a nerd. The thing is, I did not have what most children have playmates and the great outdoors. I was the only child in a house full of adults, and poor health kept me indoors most of the time. This did not make for an unhappy childhood. I was dearly loved by my parents and my grandmother, and lavishly indulged by our maids, but I longed for the company of other children, and it was this that I found in school. However, for a long while, school was not a happy place for me. I was not popular. I choose to think that this was not due to any unpleasantness in my character, but was simply a consequence of my being sickly. Children are quick to spot weakness or oddity, and capable of great cruelty to those so afflicted. I was a shy, skinny, awkward child, unable to hold my own at outdoor games. This alone would have marked me for ostracism. But in addition to this, I had an over solicitous mother, who, all unknowing, made it impossible for either my teacher or my classmates to ignore me. Thus, I was a constant object of scorn. Mrs. Peralta, my kindergarten teacher, whom I worshipped with a devotion bordering on idolatry, contributed as innocently to my suffering, for the Silver Star scheme was her brainchild. In a kindergarten classroom, we pupils were seated on small chairs around long, rectangular tables, and every Friday, Mrs. Peralta would award the Silver Star to the table which had achieved perfect attendance that week. These stars were pasted on a large chart, which contained drawings of each table in the room, and was hung on the wall beside the blackboard for everyone to see. Because of my frequent illnesses, I was often absent. This prevented my table from ever acquiring the much coveted silver stars, and earned for me the everlasting hatred of my table mates. This prevented my table from ever acquiring the much coveted silver stars, and earned for me the everlasting hatred of my table mates. By the time I was 7 years old, my health had improved somewhat, and I was able to attend classes with greater regularity. It was discovered with some surprise, mine, as well as everyone else's, that I was a bright child. My social life should have improved. But then, there was the business of the soft boiled egg and a white cotton napkin. This matter involved my mother, yet again, as well as Sister Sabina, my teacher in grade 2. My mother regarded a soft-boiled egg at midday and a glass of milk at night as absolutely necessary for my well-being. Perhaps it was a generally held opinion in those days that soft-boiled eggs and milk were an essential part of a growing child's diet. The trouble was that not only was I thoroughly disgusted by the taste of soft-boiled eggs, but I was also incapable of feeding myself the slippery stuff without getting it all over myself. Mama confided the problem to Sister Sabina, who promptly offered to feed me the egg herself during recess. So, every day, while my classmates trooped out to enjoy their bottles of chocolate or glasses of fruit juice in the dappled sunlight, I had to march shamefacedly to Sister Sabina's desk with my little metal lunchbox, to the derision of those of my classmates, Edna Duarte, for example, who stayed behind on purpose to enjoy the spectacle of me being fed my soft-boiled egg by Sister Sabina, like an overgrown baby. My humiliation was complete at dismissal, when our maid Carmela would, in full view of the entire school, extract a large cotton napkin from a brown paper bag and tuck it into my blouse to absorb the sweat on my back, a procedure which Mama firmly believed would prevent me from catching a cold. I would then tug and pull at Carmela to get away from the scene of my disgrace as quickly as possible, but never quickly enough to miss the taunts. Patriciang Payatot! Patriciang Payatot! Because God is merciful, I grew steadily stronger, and by the time I was 9, was steady enough to be considered normal. That is, I could eat more or less what everyone else ate and participate in the games favored by my classmates, like Pico, Pantitero, and Agawan base. My getting high grades in tests also began to count for something. I had ceased to be a social outcast. However, I was plagued by a new set of problems. To begin with, I discovered the importance of good looks. I had also realized that I did not possess them. My best friend Cynthia Belmonte was a pretty girl. She had large dark eyes, a pert little nose, a set of even white teeth, dimpled arms, smooth, light brown skin, and glossy hair which she wore in shoulder length, page boy cut. Even prettier was Rosemary Gonzalez. Rosemary was a mestiza, fair skinned and flashy, with the rosiest cheeks and the curliest eyelashes I had ever seen. She would sing in a high, clear voice, dance the hula, and skip rope non-stop for 10 whole minutes. But her most enviable asset was her hair. This was light color, almost brown, thick enough and long enough to be done in a ponytail of corkscrew curls, which made her look like she had stepped out of the pages of my favorite book, The Woman. I, on the other hand, was pale, thin, long, and clumsy. Patriciang Payatot alright. Moreover, my mother would not let me grow my hair because she believed it would absorb all the calcium in my body. So I had to wear it in a glamorous Prince Valiant bob. I remember reading somewhere that we learned the meaning of attractiveness only by seeing ourselves through the eyes of the opposite sex. I don't agree. I arrive at a definition of beauty is by comparing myself with Rosemary Gonzalez. It is true, though, that my awareness of the boys' admiration for Rosemary sharpened my feelings of inadequacy. In those days, our school accepted boy pupils up to grade 4, but for a long time they had existed only in the margins of our world. They occupied separate classrooms and played different games under trees in the campus. Those of us who had brothers or male cousins knew that boys were dirty, rowdy, disgusting creatures best left to their own devices. The school programs at which we were sometimes required to sing and dance together or participate in what nuns called tableaux were regarded as ordeals by both them and us. Things changed when we entered 4th grade. First, we found that we had to share a classroom. What possible reason the sisters could have had for this arrangement remains a mystery to me. What is clear is that it marked the beginning of an entirely new phase in our lives. Suddenly, we were casting sidelong glances at the boys when we passed them in the corridor, and giggling and blushing and pinching each other when they entered the canteen, and talking about them as we clustered around the stone benches under the pine trees, pretending to ignore their noisy attempts to attract our attention. It was Rosemary Gonzalez's attention that all of them wished to attract. This included Mike Cordova, the handsomest boy of all. But we could hardly begrudge Rosemary Mike's interest. He was clearly in the same league as she, being tall, fair, brown-eyed, curly-haired, and able to play the harmonica better and run faster than everyone else in class. In any case, my own dreams were centered on Felipe Tirona. Felipe looked the way all the men I would later fall in love with looked, lean and dark and intense. He was the best speller and the fastest problem solver I knew. And this, I felt, was more important than playing the harmonica or running fast. There was also something about him which I could not name then, but which I know now to be that indefinable quality which sets up some persons and marks them for positions of leadership. It was his friendship the other boys sought, his approval they valued. It was to him they turned when they were in trouble, and to him they presented the trophies they won. Though not physically the most gifted, he was their strategist, their rallying point, their hero. Felipe did not take part in the horseplay his companions resorted to when they wanted us to notice them. while they punch each other or try to trip each other up or call each other absurd, coarse names. Felipe stood by, watching them with a half grin, amused and a little aloof. When the games got a bit too rough, he would put a stop to them with a quick gesture which the boys recognized and obeyed, as troops will heed a signal from their commanding officer. I do not know what made me think that a boy like Felipe would ever notice me. Perhaps it was the intensity of my own feelings. When we want something badly enough, do we not convince ourselves that it is meant for us? When we fall in love, do we not think it's inevitable, but the other person must return the feeling? Perhaps I told myself that Felipe would look beyond Rosemary Gonzalez's bright eyes, beautiful hair, and recognize my fine qualities. Whatever those might be, even as I had looked beyond my Cordova's good looks and recognized his, I confided my hopes in Cynthia. "Oh, I'm sure he likes you," Trissy, she said. "You're so bright and everything." "No one pays any attention to me," I said, too sensible to take her loyalty for the truth. Cynthia herself was almost as popular as Rosemary and kept receiving little tokens from our boy classmates. Sticky chocolate kisses, tubes of rainbow-colored lifesavers, paper cutouts of hearts, things I had never had the exquisite pleasure of getting. "I think they're just shy," Cynthia said. "You're just so snobbish." Here was consolation. I received no token, not because boys thought I was ugly, but because they were scared of me. "You really think so?" I asked, craving reassurance. "Cross my heart. And anyway," Cynthia added, "Felipe couldn't like anyone better than you. Not even Rosemary. She's not bright at all. And he is. He's the very brightest, isn't he? And you're next, Trissy. Everyone knows that." There, Cynthia had articulated my most secret thought, the basis for all my wild, wonderful dreams about Felipe. He had to like me because we were right for each other, only I deserved him. For months, Cynthia and I watched Felipe for what we took to be signs that he was not indifferent to me. Once, he chose me to be on his team for a spelling bee, chose me over any other girl. And next to Neofito Dulay and Arturo Salas, another time, I dropped my arithmetic book as I was walking up to the blackboard to copy a problem. And he picked it up and handed it back to me. The other boys broke into whistles and catcalls, but Felipe just shrugged and shut them up with one of his characteristic gestures. And when we had to recite a poem during convocation, Cynthia swore that he looked directly at me when he said the lines, "A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye. Fair as a star, when only one is shining in the sky." No one else noticed any of this. This was the sweet delight of it. It was a secret between Cynthia and me and Felipe. The high point of this phase of my life was the Christmas program, when our class had to do a gypsy dance, with tambourines, headscarves, and fringed shawls for the girls, and satin sashes for the boys. Sister Celeste picked out 10 girls and 10 boys. Rosemary was chosen, of course, and Cynthia and Marilu Zepeda, and Edna Duarte, and 5 other girls. And to my own disbelief, me! Then, she selected the boys who were to be our partners. Rosemary got Mike, and Cynthia got Arturo, and turned all rosy, for she liked him awfully. Though she pretended not to, except with me. When Sister Celeste was about to announce who my partner was to be, I did not dare hope, but it was indeed Felipe. As I climbed the steps to take my place on stage, I heard Edna snicker, but her malice could not touch me. Felipe and I were about to face the world together. His satin sash would be the same color as my headscarf, my French shawl, emerald green. Rehearsals for Our performance provided Cynthia and me with endless opportunities for more delighted speculations, particularly the finale, when my hand in Felipe's, I curtsied and he bowed to the audience. The thrill of it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before, even better than putting on a long white gown and a veil of tulle and lace for First Holy Communion, or meeting President Ramon Magsaysay in person when he came to my tita Nena's 25th wedding anniversary party. Do you know? Cynthia said to me one morning at recess. I think Rosemary likes him too. Likes whom? I asked, digging into my cellophane bag of Kropek. Him! Felipe, of course! I stared at her. Everyone knows Rosemary likes Mike, I said. But don't you notice how she's always looking at him? Like when he recites in class? And yesterday, I heard her say to Mary Lou that she thought he was cute. I shrugged. Rosemary was always calling people cute. It was one of her favorite words. I took a sip from a bottle of lemon barley and popped another piece of Kropek into my mouth. Felipe was mine. All those sessions with Cynthia had convinced me of it. And as commencement approached, the whole school appeared to concur. For on the day after our final test, Sister Celeste announced that Felipe was receiving first honors in academics and was receiving second honors. We will begin practicing for commencement exercises with the sixth graders this afternoon. Sister Celeste continued. You, as a graduating class of the primary school, will march into auditorium first, led by Felipe and Patricia. You must march carefully, in time to the music which Miss Sikat will play on the piano. This is a very solemn occasion. Boys and girls, there is to be no talking or giggling. Is this clear? Her voice seemed to be coming from far away. My face felt hot, and I was having difficulty breathing. Was I about to faint? Felipe and I were going to march down the aisle of the school auditorium side by side. We would lead the graduating classes of grade 4 and grade 6. Everything else would be erased. My absences, my ineptness at patintero, the soft-boiled egg, the large cotton napkin, I would be redeemed once and for all. We turned sharply right, synchronizing our steps, marching to the music. The rest of the class fell in behind us, 2 by 2, at the left end of the stage. Felipe and I turned right again. We were to exit through the stage. As I turned, I happened to look up at my classmates, who were still on the tiered platform. Rosemary, being among the tallest, was in the very last row, looking even prettier than usual. Her face more radiant, her hair more abundant. I thought at first she was staring at me, and I smiled, instinctively. But in the next instance, I realized it was Felipe she was looking at, and there was something in her expression which made me turn quickly to my partner. I caught a sly wink, and a smile, secret, conspiratorial, and I caught Rosemary's own smile, sweet and triumphant, before I bent my head swiftly to shut off the world.